What is up, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of the AYM Show. I am your host, Alan Mishevitz, and I could not be more excited to start this journey with you guys. So this podcast is much more than just a few tips or tricks about life, but it's about getting the bigger picture on how faith and intentional action can help impact our lives and business. So we live in a world with constantly telling us about what we should value: shiny object syndrome, success, cars, money, status. And I just always wondered, what if we just put God first? And my goal with this podcast is just to help you think bigger, act smarter, and stay grounded in the values that matter most to us all. So today I want to start with something very foundational that has been on my mind for quite some time now, which is wisdom. We are going to be diving in wisdom in our lives, business, and leadership by exploring some of these incredible stories in the Bible, two to be specific, of Solomon and Joseph, right? Their lives offer timeless lessons and things that we can learn from them, right? And just not only for our lives, but how to run a business, how to handle conflict, and just overall how to be good people. So without further ado, let's try to jump into it. So we're going to first start off with Solomon. Just to set the scene a little bit, Solomon was a very young king, very, very young. And he was having a dream, and he asked God, not for money or power or manipulation. He asked God for wisdom. Now let's just think about that for a second, okay? If God were to give you a blank check, what would you do with it? Right? Would you buy a car? Would you buy a house? Would you retire your parents? Or would you write your check for $10 billion, $1 trillion? What would you try to do? But Solomon asked for wisdom. Now that is huge. And he first states this, or he asks this, in 1 Kings 3:9. And it states, "Give your servant, therefore, an understanding mind to govern your people, that I may discern between good and evil. For who is able to govern this your great people?" He's asking God for wisdom. And I think that is so extremely powerful, right? God was so pleased with the request of not materialistic desires or nothing that was worldly thing, but he was asking for something so much more meaningful: wisdom and his ability to serve others and God's people, right? And like, he gives him everything else. Like, he gives him wisdom so that he can find money, power, and everything. He finds clarity, he finds serving others, he finds how to build stuff that lasts, right? And how can we do this in the modern application or implementation of this? So how I would translate this today is, when you face a tough decision, whether it's a business deal, a relationship, a career move, ask yourself, what is the wisest thing that I can do, right? Wisdom isn't about knowledge, it's about discernment and knowing what is best for the long run. Even if it's not the easiest path, is always the best. Be humble, have humility to ask God, what is the best step right now? Ask God for everything. Ask God for wisdom, and everything will follow. So here's how I would start doing this today: is begin your day asking God for wisdom, right? This is what I do every single day. So you can kind of copy me, or you can do something different. But I get up before everything, right? Before I look at my phone, before I read, before I journal, before anything. I literally sit on the side of my bed and I pray and ask God for wisdom. Okay, how can I do that? So what I would say, or something along the lines, is, what is, like, ask God, what is the wisest thing? Or like, what is the wisest thing I can do? Please guide me to the wisest decisions that I can make today. Please guide me to make the best decisions that I can make today, right? That is what I would do, right? Before you check your phone, before you dive into your emails, or before you have to do schoolwork, just pray, God, help me make the wisest decisions today. This is a very small habit that takes less than 10 minutes, and it can radically change the way you approach your day-to-day life. After implementing this, I've had numerous doors open for me that I have never had before. I'm happier than ever, and I understand and I can see things in a different view, and I can give all of that to God and asking for wisdom. Now, I think that just reflecting on this story alone, I think that you can really learn a lot, and I encourage you guys to read the Solomon in 1 Kings or in Proverbs, where he writes all of his very good knowledge. Proverbs is also a very, very good book written by Solomon, and I think that his knowledge is distilled amazingly, not just for business, but life in general. So I encourage you guys to read that, and I hope that you can take this actionable step to getting closer to ask for wisdom, having the humility to ask for wisdom, and implementing some sort of way to ask, how can I do something, and how can I do this the wisest way, right? Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about Joseph, right? If Solomon's story starts about like a strong starting, Joseph's story is like kind of starting strong in adversity, right? Here's a guy who was betrayed by his own brothers. He was sold off to slavery. He was falsely accused. He was thrown into prison. And most of us would give up. I mean, think about it. If we were all in the shoes of Joseph, I can confidently say that many of us would not do the same thing he did, right? And all of this time, I forgot to mention, was he was faithful to God, right? He was faithful to God in what he did. And he never complained about anything, right? It's crazy. Like, I don't know. It's just, this story to me is very, very powerful. And fast forward to Genesis 41. Pharaoh had a troubled dream, right? And here, let me read it for us here. In Genesis 41:16, Joseph answered the Pharaoh, stating, "It is not me. God will give Pharaoh an answer of peace." So Joseph was asked and called upon to interpret the Pharaoh's dream, and he did, but he gave the credit to God. That is amazing, right? Going through all the hardship that he went through, and then not taking his credit from his own, but having the humility to give the credit to God. And I think that's a huge takeaway from this, right? I think that's something that we can all do separately. And I think that is very, very powerful, right? That's like faith kind of in action. And because of that faith, I think Joseph not only interprets the dream, but is elevated to second in commandment in Egypt, right? He is given lots of stuff. And I think that is very closely correlated to him giving all of his humility, or having the humility to ask God and give God all the credit for everything that was good in his life. And the lesson here is very clear, right? Faith and patience are game changers, right? Life is not always going to be fair, and the road to success is rarely smooth, right? I've never met someone who said that their success journey was overnight. It might look like it, but I've never met anyone. Even people who do crypto and stuff usually lose money very quickly. But if you stay faithful and you keep showing up and trusting God, I think you'll find those setbacks as like step-ups or stepping stones to something greater, right? The lesson is so clear. It shows that a failure and another failure and another failure leads to something greater. And I think that is super powerful. Like, right, in business, you can take this, and when a lot of people say adversity is where businesses are grown or whatever, right? A client goes to, maybe your deal falls through, or maybe you launch a product and it doesn't do well. Those moments in the moment feel so devastating, right? But maybe that one product that flopped made you test another product that makes you $1 million in a month, right? So it gives you the opportunity for the next step in your journey. And that, I think, is a very key perspective change. So instead of asking why me or why did this happen to me, ask why or what is God trying to teach me? Like, why am I struggling to find a good product? Or why am I struggling to find a good business model? Or why am I struggling to have a good relationship? Why am I struggling to have good health? Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Ask, what is God trying to teach me? Why is God doing this to me? What is he trying to teach me? Like, is he trying to teach me discipline so that I can have better eating habits? Or is he trying to teach me discipline to move forward on a specific path that he knows I am going to succeed in, right? And what is God trying to teach me is the gist of what I'm trying to get to, right? How can we implement this like an actionable takeaway, right? So the next time, right, you have a setback. Let's say we hit a roadblock and let's say we have a clothing business, right? And we have a product and it's not doing well. Let's say that we spent $1,000 to order all the materials, do all this stuff, and it just goes right down the drain because no one buys it. That is a huge step back, right? You're now $1,000 in the drain. It's a sunk cost, right? And during those times, you can get resentful or angry at God and saying, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Just take a step back and reflect about it. Journal about it. Pray about it. And look for the lessons, because God really does leave those lessons everywhere. Like, I'm so surprised when you fail a lot, like, you can really see the meaning behind it in hindsight. So, like, if I were to fail something and then I succeed later, you're like, oh, that failure was a stepping stone for me to get better at something else. But you don't really see it in the moment. And I think that if you journal about it, just have faith and pray about it in the moment, you'll come to understand and appreciate this stuff in the moment as well as in hindsight, right? You have to trust the process, even when it doesn't make sense, because sometimes we have to take a step back, reflect on it, and life wouldn't be as intricate and beautiful as it is if we knew every step that was going to come before or after the next step, right? Like, if I were to know that this product is going to fail, the next product is going to not, I mean, that would be nice, but I wouldn't learn that core lesson that God wants me to learn about that failed product, right? I might learn the skill of trying to be a better storyteller, or I might learn the skill of being better at management or understanding trends, right? You have to take every failure, reflect on it, and understand, what is he trying to teach me? Not, why is this happening to me? And I think everyone falls into that trap. I especially fall into the trap of, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? But I like to take a step back, reflect, and say, what is God trying to teach me, right? So let's try to bring all these two main or huge stories and kind of distill it into 3 key principles, So how can we apply these today, like wisdom and leadership, and how can I apply it into my day-to-day life, right? So both Solomon and Joseph had humility. I think that's the biggest one out of 3 that I'm going to cover, right? They understood and recognized that wisdom comes from God, not themselves. And they had the humility to take a step back and ask God for the wisdom that they needed or wanted to understand better, right? And I think as leaders, as business owners, or as people in general, we have to approach every situation with humility, because knowing we don't know all the answers, right? No one knows all the answers. And if we don't have the humility to walk into the room and try to be able to learn and have an open mind of saying, I don't know everything, but if I put God in the lead and have God guide me, I will, in due time, find things and nuggets that will get me closer to knowing more things. I think that's very powerful, and having the humility to do that takes time and practice, and I think that trying to work on that every single day and saying, I don't know everything, I'm not perfect, is extremely powerful, right? I think another one is service. So the best leaders focus on serving others, right? You can look at, there's a lot of them, but you just have to understand that serving others first rather than serving your self-desired interests, right? So whether your team or your customers or even your family or meetings, leadership meetings, just not like, let's say you have something that you want to do and other people have different opinions about it. Not just forcing your opinion on someone else. Understanding that if you're the leader, let everyone speak first. And then after that, maybe your opinion will change, or maybe you'll be more open or receptive to different ideas. So having the service and the serving of others, like being able to serve others, is very, 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 very important. And I think that is the second key principle of this podcast that I wanted to talk about. And I think 3 is integrity. I think that this is very lacking in our day right now. I think that a lot of people and a lot of gurus and a lot of people that we watch online are they don't have the integrity that you might believe. I've come to realize that a lot of people do it in their own self-interest. Like I said, the service part, they don't do it for the benefit of the other people and serving others. They do it for their own benefit so that they can become rich and have materialistic things and have a persona or an image online. And I think that we should all never try to do that. I think we all should be our normal selves and try to show us the most authentic, raw parts of who we are. And I think that's why integrity is the third key pillar. So even like a great leader would stick to their values, even when it's tough, right? If you disagree with someone in a room, the true test of having integrity is, can you stand up for what you believe in and not like just go with the flow? Like, I don't know, like it's like you have to have the trust, like you have to have the value of your word, and you have to have clear boundaries of what you believe in, what you don't believe in, what your values are, and trying to stick to the integrity of your values even when everyone else disagrees with you, right? It's not just kind of like a buzzword, right? It's a foundation of trust, which I believe, and I think everyone should believe, is the foundation of business, right? Like if I don't trust you, why would I pay you $100, $500, $1,000, $100,000 to teach me or to help me do something? If I trust you, then I'm 100 or 1,000 times more likely to pay you the money. And I think a modern example of this is Dave Ramsey. So Dave Ramsey is a very good role model for this, right? He's a very amazing guy, I think. And it really goes to show in his company. Everyone who works with him says that he is the best person they've worked for. And he has people who worked for him for like 30, 40, 50 years. And that's like unheard of, right? Maybe 50 is a little bit long, but I don't know. But that's unheard of in a normal company. I think in a normal company, it's like a turnover of like 3 or 4 years. How can we try to serve others to make them a part of the company culture and make them feel welcomed in their company, right? And I think a big part of Dave Ramsey's success is the core principle of the Bible, right? He talks about this, but his business or his HR handbook is based on the Bible of being a good leader and always being there for one another. And I think that everyone can take so much from that. I would recommend you guys do your own research and go watch Dave Ramsey's talk about this. But I think that it is so amazing to see. Like the service, their model is serving people with integrity, staying true to their values, and doing what God would have done and staying true to the principles, right? And I think that wisdom is truly in action. And I hope to replicate that in some way. And I hope that you guys can either take some bits from it or just try to implement some parts of that into your business or your day-to-day life. So I think the actionable takeaway from all these three things is a question to reflect on is, are you building something just for you, or are you building something that serves others and does it for the glory of God? Take 10 minutes a week to write down your why. Why are you doing this? What is the bigger purpose behind the business, the actions that you take? I like taking one day of the week and scheduling the whole week. In that time, I usually reflect on what were the key 5 goals that I really wanted to achieve that week, and what were and why did I do those, right? It's similar to the principle of trying to plan that weekly. It's like a weekly check-in almost, right? I'm kind of stealing this from Ali Abdaal, so sorry, Ali. But basically, every week, you write down a list of what you want to accomplish, and you kind of, at the end of the week, you check in and say, did I accomplish these things? And why did I accomplish them? Why am I doing these? What is my quarterly goal that I'm going towards? And how can I get better? How can I act with more integrity? How can I act with more wisdom? How can I have more humility in what I do? I think that is very, very important. And I think that if you write down your why, like, what's your bigger purpose of what you're building? And I think if you ask that question every single week or every single quarter or every single month, you will get so much farther and you'll become closer to understanding why you're doing something. And it kind of eliminates all the, I'm doing this just for the validation of others, or I'm doing this for the image of what other people want me to see, or how you want other people to see you as. I think that's very, very important to take a step back and just say, why? Why am I doing this? What is the benefit? Is it hurting others, or is this what God would want me to do? Like, that's another question you can ask. Would this be something that God would want me to do? So those are some questions that I would say the actionable takeaways are. So closing thoughts, I think, are, I just want to leave you with one of these verses that I have, and it is Proverbs 2:6, right? And it says, "For the Lord gives you wisdom. From his mouth comes knowledge and understanding," right? So I truly believe that God has all the wisdom in this world. And if you just ask for it and have the humility to ask, have the service to serve others, and have the integrity to uphold your values and not be a snake, or not be not trustworthy, and just act as Solomon and Joseph did, you will become very, 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 you would do very good, right? This challenge, I just have a small challenge for you this week, and that is try to start each day and with asking, like, for wisdom, right? I kind of said this earlier on in the first section with Solomon, but when you ask for wisdom, don't just ask for it and expect it to be given to you. You kind of have to act on it, right? If you just pray and just sit on the couch and do nothing and watch TV all day, I mean, that's not, maybe it'll give you some wisdom, but it's not going to give you as much wisdom as, let's say you ask for wisdom and you start just taking action on what you are. Let's say you have this clothing line that you are trying to do, and you failed, and you're now $1,000 lower in money. You don't have $1,000, and you ask for wisdom, right? Now you're asking for wisdom, and let's say you take action. Let's say the first action you take is reading a book, right? You read a book on how can I be better at business on X, Y, and Z, right? That's one step, right? And maybe that book teaches you 10 key action points that you can take on your next business adventure. I think that it really, really, really important to take a step back, understand that you do not know any or all the answers, especially if you're just starting out, like a lot of people are, I think that it's very important to have the humility, just to wait, ask for wisdom, and you have to act on it and understand that you aren't going to give, or wisdom isn't going to come to you like that. It's going to take some time. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to look, right? God isn't going to give you the answer like, boom, here's the answer, right? Like he gives you nuggets and you have to kind of connect the dots, right? It's not always easy. I understand that. But I think that if you just make one decision a day, that is like connected to that wisdom, whether it's like a business choice or if it's relationship stuff or if it's how you spend your time. So like, let's say you spend your time and you spend 5 hours a day on your cell phone. And let's say that you think it's better to spend 2 or 3 hours. Maybe that's the first step, right? That 1 week, you try to limit your screen time by 80%, or that's a lot. But let's say you want to limit your screen time by 20 or 30%. That's a win, right? Or that one day, maybe you spend too much time on your phone in the morning. So let's say you put a lock on it so that you can't use it until noon. There's actionable steps that you can get closer to the wisdom, right? That's the modern interpretation of it. It doesn't have to be, oh, we have to do the old-fashioned stuff. No, you can implement it into the modern day-to-day life, right? And I think that is very, 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 very important. So I think that wraps up kind of what exactly I wanted to talk about. So Solomon asking for wisdom, having the humility to ask God for the wisdom when he has power, right? He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for wealth. He didn't ask for manipulation. I think this is a big point. Like he didn't ask, like, I truly am very, very griping or thinking about this and journaling about it. But it's so amazing to me that he asked for wisdom. And I think that every person can ask for wisdom. And I think that is truly going to change your life. So thank you for hanging out with me today on this AYM Show podcast, I guess. I know I ranted a little bit. I know I'm not perfect with my words yet, but I'm trying, and I'm going to keep continuing to post these and trying to get better, and I will. But if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone that you think needs to hear it. Because I think that it's very, very important to share the message of God to everyone. And I truly believe that if you found anything from this, which I hope you did, and if you didn't, just let me know, and I can try my best to improve. But God willing, I hope you guys did learn something from this. And if you are not subscribed, if you want to, go for it. And don't miss the next episode that I release. And just remember that wisdom isn't about knowing. It's about doing. You have to remember that if you just sit down and don't do anything, you won't receive the much wisdom as you will if you take action. So go out, build something meaningful this week. Take some time to journal. Take some time to create a list of why you're doing something. Take a time to meaningfully understand who you're trying to serve, what you're doing, why you're doing it. I want to say thank you for making it this far, and I just want to say see you next time, and God bless all of you. You guys are the best. I believe in you, and I know you guys can all do it. Just have the humility, the service in others, the integrity, and I'll see you guys next time.